are, Friday morning, B&G Campout in the Blue Mountains. We kind of had to skip our meeting yesterday due to a tremendous storm that passed through on Wednesday and Wednesday night and kind of hung on through yesterday morning. So we're going to start with the things that happened the day before yesterday. There's a few things that we have to share that are pretty cool. I think Stryker's going to start. What you got?
All right, so I don't know if it was the wind, animal, or something, but I felt something hit my ear, just like randomly hit my ear. And when I looked behind, there was nothing there.
Wow. Were you startled?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. All right. Anything else, Dad?
I have a question. What were you playing, or were you running or walking, or?
I was running to Buster.
You were running to Buster, and you felt that.
Yes.
Very cool.
Wow. Congratulations.
But the only sad part is they didn't take my cookie.
Oh, they didn't?
No.
Oh.
Maybe
Well,
tonight.
I'm sure they knew that you left it out there, and they'll get braver, okay?
Okay.
Okay. All right, so we had some other things that happened. We had Kelly had a bear and then a juvenile sighting the day before, and we had gone over to look at some of the tracks. I was going to show Sandy and Kathy some tracks that we found after the sighting, and then there were some interesting things that we had found where you saw the bear cross the road. So we had gone down and looked at that stuff, and on the way back we stopped on this bend of the road where this odd track on the bank was. And after examining and looking around the area, I think we kind of came down to it was probably an elk foot that slid, possibly. And as we had were about wrapping it up, I heard this really loud knock through the forest right across this little ravine, a really deep ravine. And I said, "Did you hear that?" And Kathy says, "No, I was talking." And it's like, okay. So another 20 seconds went by and we hear another tremendous knock. And it's like, wow, there it is. And another 20 seconds goes by and we start hearing what I'm thinking is firecrackers. It was kind of started out slow, pop, 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 pop. And then that turned into crash, boom, crash, boom. So at first we were thinking, two young fellows on bikes had just driven past us, and we were thinking, well, they're over there knocking on trees and throwing out firecrackers. But then once, the crash boom and the crash boom came, we realized, okay, this was trees falling. But,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, I suspect the knocks may have started it out, but because there was several seconds between the time that the sound started, the first knock, the second knock, the popping may have been the fibers of the tree breaking. And Kathy, you said you had something similar to that, very similar to that happened to you about a year ago.
Correct. We were up in Oregon, and we didn't hear the firecracker sounds, though. That was new to me. That didn't happen in Winbury. All we got was the two humongous knock, and it was more like a bam, bam, and then the tree fell over. So the whole firework, at first I thought shotgun and then firework. I didn't get that in Winbury. That's a new addition.
Okay.
So I don't know what the firecracker, because at first it sounded like, to me, gunshots coming up the canyon. Because it was
Okay.
pop, 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 semi-automatic pop. And then it went into full automatic. And then it sounded too fast for even an automatic that I've ever shot.
Wow.
So that was a new addition.
Yeah, it was really cool.
And only one tree fell that night,
Okay.
not the two trees.
Yeah, I think Sandy said something about, well, the way that they fell, it was like one tree hit another tree. Yeah, and
Right
took
out.
it down. Yeah,
Yeah. It sounded like it.
very cool.
That's cool.
Okay, so then, was there anything else from the day before yesterday that happened? Anybody has to report?
Just our gifting spot up the hill here.
Okay.
Up on the log, Penny and I put some cookies and crackers and
In packages.
in packages and a jar of peanut butter. It was full and it was open. We put a stick in it, and
An apple stopped on
an
it.
apple was on a on a log. We impaled it on a branch. So when we went back the first time, nothing was touched, and then I went back and
After the big storm.
after the big storm, and everything was all taken or broken on the ground, and the peanut butter jar was completely gone, as if something had carried it off. So some of the stuff we're attributing to ravens, but we're not sure about that peanut butter jar because.
Toy. The toy.
Oh yeah, and then we had been up there a couple times already and looked around the log and didn't see this at the time, but when I went back up and found the jar gone that time, I looked down on the other side of the log and there was this little toy that I had left there last year, and I couldn't find it when I left. It's a little slot machine that you pull the lever and the things twirl, and it's silver, and there it was laying right out in the open.
Oh, wow.
And we had covered that to make sure we didn't have old stuff from last year before we set the new stuff the
Yeah,
first
so
time.
it was- I don't know if it was a sign that they knew we were back and they brought that back to us. I don't know.
It didn't have any spruce needles on it because of the storm. It rained hellaciously, so I wrapped it upside down to see if there was water and it completely dry. I mean, it wasn't overwintered up there. You know, it
Wow.
didn't have 7 feet of snow on it and pine needles and duff and
It wasn't dirty
was
or
clean.
wet. Wow.
No, it
dry,
wasn't wet
clean,
at all.
and functions. The slot still functions. So
Wow. After a year
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the woods.
So,
Yeah.
you know, we wonder if they knew we were back and they brought that back, and, you know, they're intelligent and have memories.
Yeah.
It all adds up.
Well, just a little farther up, last year I had a big crystal geode with a piece of abalone shell and a piece of turquoise that I had left up there. And I went up and checked the day after we got here, and the log I had left them on, they had been knocked off, and you could see they were covered in debris. The abalone shell and the piece of turquoise, I literally had to like dig up out of the ground. There was so much debris over them that I had to fish for them to find them.
Yeah.
So to find a toy that you had left last year,
up on top, perfectly dry,
Yeah.
no debris,
clean,
and no weathering.
pristine, yeah,
And
that's
we had
awesome.
been up there a few times and never saw it, so, you
Yeah,
know.
I
Well,
mean,
we'd
we
all
inspect-
walked that trail and didn't see it.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you guys had gone back to the area of Kelly's sighting where we had found the tracks,
Right.
and I went and took Kathy back there too because I was gonna show her stuff. We were gonna check out some of the tracks where the bear crossing was. So we got there and you guys were already there and you had found something you pointed out to us. You want to talk about that?
Sure. Well, first of all, I had gifted down there, and the peanut butter jar. I love to give them peanut butter. Anyhow, it was on the ground. It was on a log and it wasn't windy, so I don't think it could have blown off there. Something might have grabbed it, looked at it, and then threw it down. Nothing was eaten out of it. And probably about 50 yards to the left of that, out by the road, we noticed some areas in the tall grass where it was all mowed down, like something had stepped from the trail into the woods, into the brush, and then another footstep, probably another
3.5, 4 feet.
3.5, 4 feet from that, and there were no hoof prints on the road or in any of those tracks. And then beside the tracks that kept going back into the woods, there were a couple areas that were completely mowed down, as if something had been sitting there or laying there. The brush was bent over, but still fluffy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't there the day before, and so we knew that was all new. So it almost looks like something was either laying down there through the storm, or you could even spy on people from back there because there's some
Yeah.
heavy brush in front of them.
Well, when we got there, we went in, and after you pointed it out to us, we could see where you guys had walked back in there to look at this area, and then you could see where there was like 1, 2, 3 large steps through the vegetation back into this area that was just flattened.
Right.
And right at the edge, there was one spot where you could kind of make out what looked like an area that was one large footprint where it was crushed, but it still hadn't wilted yet. And then,
Yeah, it was all
There-
fairly
Two
recent.
Yeah.
broken rose things
Yeah,
in
that-
the direction of
yeah, that were
travel.
just snapped off. And I have video of all this that I'll be sharing. But there was not an elk track to be found anywhere. So when you see these big spots
After
like
a
this,
rain.
Yeah.
You know, the soil was softened. And
Yeah, yeah.
You
So
could-
if when I was up there the first day after Kelly had her sighting, there were fresh elk tracks that kind of came down and went down through the
Right.
trees.
Right.
And we went through where the vegetation, like you said, some of it was crushed down, but a lot of it was still up and it was bent,
Right.
but it wasn't broken, it wasn't flat to the
Smushed.
ground.
Yeah.
And there was not an elk track, there was no elk poop. You know, so whatever had been in there was even one spot that almost looked like a giant butt print to me
Uh-huh.
because it was like in a ring, so it was like large, very large, but in the middle there was still stuff that was standing
Right,
upright,
right.
you know, as though that had been like between the legs or something. Okay,
Yeah.
so after that, there was some firewood we were going to go collect in that same area just down the road a little farther. So that was Kathy was with me, and Brad, my husband, we were gonna put the wood in his truck, and you guys had found the wood, so you were there. We're gonna point out where it was. So it was kind of back at the end of this road, this beautiful isolated little spot, very close to where Kelly had had her sighting. We got back there and we're getting a little wood load. We were pretty much done, and something happened. So would you like to share that, Penny?
Sure. I was looking at Kathy in opposite direction of the sound. I heard this crack or smash, looked directly back, and Kathy's got eyes on it. Brad's got eyes on it. So there were several people who saw it as it happened in something long and black. I didn't see arms, legs, head, feet, any of that. It was just about yay long, 3.5 feet, and slender, 6 to 8 inches, Kathy, wide maybe. Hard.
Than that to me,
Okay.
from my vantage point. But go ahead.
From her vantage point, it seemed a little bit wider, but anyhow, I had charged right back there with Brad. We went straight back there.
Give her the microphone.
We went straight back there. Brad and I made a beeline, never looked away. Went under the trees where it happened, because there was 2 trees side by side, and it happened to the right of the 2 trees that were side by side. Nothing on the ground in terms of black-backed bark. You know, we thought maybe a big sheave of bark had fallen off the tree. Brad did see branches going. I don't know they saw the black thing, whatever it was. But it went straight down like a rocket. There was no jumping around or flailing or no appendages off of it. It was just long and black. Don't know. And so we went back there. We couldn't see where, if it had been a bear cub, mother would have been nearby. We'd have heard crash, crash, crash down the hill of them fleeing. Didn't hear any of that. You couldn't see a part in the brush back on the downhill side where the exit strategy happened. We don't know. We don't know.
So something dropped from a tree.
Correct.
That's what you're saying?
That's what I was gonna say.
Something
Drop
dropped
and
from a
come
tree.
down the trunk.
But it wasn't below the tree when we got there. And did Brad say it was less than 50 yards, maybe 40?
Oh, not even that far.
Yeah, 75 feet maybe
Yeah,
or
maybe.
something. I don't know.
Yeah. So, what was your take on it, Kathy?
Well, can you hear me?
Oh,
You can
turn-
probably hear me without it, right?
Yeah, I can probably. Yeah, but I don't know if they can. So,
Better?
Yep.
Okay. From my vantage point, looking over her shoulder, the trees separated, so there's a space in between them. And what I first saw it coming down out of the foliage, because the leaves, branches didn't go all the way to the ground. They're pretty high up. But I saw something start to come out between the things, and that caught my eye. My first impression was it was square at the bottom. You know, because I was expecting to see like a bear climbing down the trunk. It never touched the trunk of the tree at all. And no digits, no appendages separated. I was waiting for legs, arms, something. But like she said, it happened really fast. It
It was a drop.
square to me, yeah, the shape wasn't. My mind, I think, was expecting a tree limb, bark, something coming out of the tree, but it never materialized into that shape. So my mind first saw square, black, coming down, nothing unfolded, no arms, no legs. Fell to the ground, to me rather gracefully. I was expecting more of a crash, more of a disturbance on the ground when it fell, like fall on your butt or something. So my mind was telling me it's a squared shape, pretty wide, all the way down. No appendages fell out, no legs fell out as it hit the ground, And where it hit the ground for me, it was, I couldn't see because the land sloped down really quickly on the back side of the tree, I believe is why I couldn't see it actually take off when it hit the ground. It came down and it was as square as the bulk. It wasn't round like a bear. I've seen bear, even baby bears, have a roundness to them. And this to me was more wider, I think, more of a, but like I said, no legs ever came down.
Yeah, and
It was like it was hunched the whole time. Everything was in close.
I've
Yeah.
seen the video, and I think I'll speak loud. I've seen video where chimpanzees coming out of a tree, coming out like a cannonball, dropping straight down, and then right before they hit the ground, then they splay out and run. So if they're in pursuit of some sort of animal or other chimps, if they actually were in pursuit of another chimpanzee, then that's how they dropped out of a tree.
And I don't think it was a black bear cub because generally they'll back down a tree and then just drop, and you'll see paws and feet. You'll see ears. You'll see
Yeah.
brownish snout.
There's
You know,
scratches on the tree.
Scratches on the tree. We looked for scratches. There wasn't anything. It just straight down
So
and disappeared.
you know what this really reminds me a lot of is especially when you said cannonball.
Yeah.
So you know, one of my first experiences at the cabin in Greenwater several years ago was when I saw a large black ball of fur drop straight down out of a tree, the top of a tree beside the cabin. It hit a limb, and it propelled itself over the roof of the cabin to another tree, hit a limb, and back over the roof of the cabin where it bounced off the porch roof and was gone. And at no time did it extend any arms or legs. It stayed balled up, you know. So when whatever force it used to push itself off those limbs had to have been strictly from its feet or ankles or maybe wrists. And to me, it looked like a monkey doing a cannonball. And yeah, this whole event reminds me of it so much because it wasn't using the trunk of the tree, it was using the limbs, which is also what Kelly reported
Yeah.
from
And
the
it
day,
sounds
few
like
days
it was all
before.
very, fluid because what I saw going up, it was just so graceful. It was like really a graceful pull up, and there wasn't like anything jutting out. It was all very, streamlined, I guess you would say, streamlined, as it's pulling itself up. So yeah, it all makes sense.
So, in my mind, this tells me that we had 2 juveniles, probable, not definite, but probable, 2 juveniles of about the same size in the same area, a few days apart, one black and one a reddish color. So either siblings or maybe cousins or something. But yeah, to be able to go back to that spot and find the trackway the next day, another trackway, and have another experience like that is just really, really tremendous.
Yeah.
So,
Can I add something?
sure.
Just in case anybody has any questions, we did check the bark on the tree. There were no rubbings, there were no scratch marks, and checked the ground out really thoroughly. And there was so much debris and old sticks and branches that had fallen that there really was no trackway.
No fresh disturbance.
And like she
underneath.
said, what surprised me is when we walked towards the back of the tree, towards the edge of that drop off, and it was a drop off, there was nothing had run through there. And standing there listening, generally, when a bear runs from me, I can hear it because they just take a straight shot down through whatever is in front of them.
Crash,
They don't generally look for the trail. Yeah, we heard none of that. Nothing
Yeah.
moved. The brush didn't move like something was crawling on its hands and knees, which we know they're crawlers if we're going with the Sasquatch theory. Nothing was moving down there, though. So we're not sure if it grabbed another tree
And went
and
back,
went back
the
up
outside.
and was watching us looking all over the place underneath it or what, because it just disappeared.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, I've had my back to it. I heard the crashing, but by the time I turned, it was gone out of sight. So
And the
As soon as-
crashing.
As soon
Go
as,
ahead.
as soon as Penny made a motion that there was something over there, I looked really quick, and all I could see was something really black down towards the bottom of the tree, and I think I could see a hip sticking out, and I could see some legs where the light was going through just before it took off, and my first thought was it some type of animal?
okay.
So, and I never saw anything move so fast. And then I ran up right over and looked down the cliff, and I could see deer tracks going down, so it either took those where it didn't make any prints, you know, because everything was already there, or it climbed a tree and I didn't think to look up, but, because there were so many big trees down there with no branches, but they were close together that, you know,
We're going back today.
yeah, they're masters of disguise, so they took right off whoever it was.
Well, it's one of the things that's written into our rules is not to pursue when something
Right.
happens. So I think it was handled really well. You know, we went over, checked out the tree, and looked over the edge, but we didn't go over the bank. We didn't try to follow it. You know, we all remained calm and rational and just observed.
Right.
So well done.
Nice.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to throw in?
I guess I have just one last thing from last night.
Okay.
So last night, you guys know, I went down the hill, and there's that little hill you can go up where we watch the sunset. But I decided to go just down a little ways off that hill, and there's like a game trail that you can see that comes up from the down below, and it comes up through the bushes, and then they would like cross the road. So I thought that'd be a good place to park. And I wanted to look up where we had seen the sighting of, the six of us had seen that sighting of what we think was a Sasquatch walking back and forth, just to look and see if I, saw anything. So this time I had my glasses on, and I was like really checking things out, had my windows down, and all of a sudden there was had been a lot of birds, songbirds were singing, there was little movement and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden it was like acute silence, like automatic. It was just like abrupt silence, and I'm looking up over to where we had seen those other, the other sighting, and there was just like if someone was up there was anybody up over there last night at sunset?
No.
Because it was really far over too, because I would be surprised if it was anybody, but there was like just a brief, like if someone took a really bright flashlight and just flashed it on, like 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yes.
flashed it off.
I saw it.
Did you see that too?
Yes, I did. And I told Terry and Claire.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did see that.
you saw that too?
It could have been the German neighbors, though. They've been out and
It
about.
time
was
was
over
it?
the hillside.
It was just at
Not on our-
sunset
On our hill or Claire and.
on your hill.
Okay, there's German neighbors up there camping. They could have been doing anything.
Could have been, but
Yeah.
it was pretty, like where I know where the crest of that hill is. It was over to the left of it.
It's unlikely.
Ours was the other side,
Yeah,
like beyond Debbie and Lee's tent.
Yeah, I didn't see that, but
probably
Wow.
down over where you were parked in that direction.
okay. Yeah, mine was across the road.
Yeah, I forgot we saw that.
We can't hear you, Terry.
Oh, what did I say?
What you guys saw?
Yeah, it was just a bright flash, and it seemed like maybe there were
Had a-
two. I don't,
Either
but
that or some kind of a trail or something.
a trail
behind
maybe, and it was from where I was sitting about that big around, and then it was gone.
And
I didn't
yours
see it
was
go
on the
out.
opposite
Ours was on the
opposite
opposite.
mountain.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And it's really deceptive, to see lengthwise because everything looks a lot closer than it really is. So it could have been your neighbors, but I really think it was over, my perspective, it was over to the left more and down below more. So anyway,
Cool.
just what I
Okay.
saw. That was it.
And the one on the hill over here, that was at the same time?
It was dark.
It was just as it was dark. Yeah.
Can't hear you.
It was dark when we saw it.
Okay,
It was very dark. It was after we had come up from
okay.
down here.
So it was much later then.
Yes, it was,
Okay.
but it was definitely a round, high beam of light.
Yeah.
Well, cool. All right, thank you. Okay, anybody else have anything they want to share? David?
So, I just said it's off. So I arrived probably like about 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon, and just hung out most of the time down here. And later in the afternoon, I decided to go up and visit Claire, Kelly, and Courtney up top and talk to them for a while. And then I just kind of felt like I was being called to the edge of the saddle. So I walked down over to the saddle, just looking over, and nothing was really happening. But then I heard someone yell my name, and, David, really loud. And then I heard like talking afterwards about some hair or something like that, something in hair. And it was like really loud. I was like, wow, they were talking very loud up there. So I went back to them and I said, who called me? Someone just called my name. Nope, no one called my name. But Claire had called my name earlier in the day when I first arrived. She was up on the hill and I was down here, and I never heard her earlier in the day. So she had called out my name, so it's like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then the conversation with the hair also happened about 2 hours before. So I don't know, I mean, they seem very good at mimicking, and we've had mimicking in multiple campouts, so it could have been that as well. And then, all right, well, that's kind of strange. Then I'm coming down the hill, coming back down here, and when I get near the restroom, I heard Claire's voice again. David, really loud, like before. And I kind of figured, yeah. Like,
Do a demo.
Can we have an example, Claire?
I was happy to see him. It was David.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's just like
okay.
that. So again, it happened again, and so that was within like a 20-minute period, and it came from up on the hill, and then there was nothing after that.
And he heard our, and I said that about her hair because Virginia was combing her hair out and she had one little rat she couldn't see. I said, Virginia, come here, let me. And she goes, I don't like anybody to comb my hair.
Yeah.
I go, oh, I won't comb it, honey. It's okay. And so he heard that,
I heard that whole conversation.
and we weren't talking very loud. She was
about
right
2
here.
hours.
Yeah,
About 2 hours.
2
after
hours
it happened.
later.
And so he heard this.
2 hours after it
Let's do the
happened.
time warp
Yeah.
again.
Well,
Because he had-
or
he had-
how many times has Barb heard Sandy's voice? Sandy's not around, vice versa. I mean, they seem to be very good at mimicking voices in
Yeah.
conversations and sounds. And so maybe it was just, rather than it being a time warp, maybe that's what it was, them just mimicking your voice. But
Repeating
it
what
sounded
they heard.
exactly like you. It was like, wow, this is freaky.
Yeah, he
And I
walked,
never had that
walked
before.
right up and he goes, did somebody call my name? And
Yeah.
we're like, no. And he goes, yeah, I heard somebody call my name. I heard someone go, David! And I'm like, oh, that was Claire, like 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
And then he goes, and I heard something about hair.
Yeah.
And I heard something, and he goes, and I heard something about hair. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was Claire calling you to say hey when you got here. And then she was having a conversation at the same time with Virginia about her hair. Only it was like 2 hours ago. So, and then I'm immediately like, oh, you have to talk
Yeah.
to Kevin about what we've been experiencing.
Right, and that's never happened to me. I know it's happened to a lot of people before in the campouts. That's the first time that's happened to me, where I've heard someone else call my name.
Well,
And
congratulations.
it was like twice within 20 minutes. And I heard that I came back and repeated the conversation about the hair. I mean, I could hear it clear as day down at the ridge, and they're probably about 30 yards away. Not clear enough, and there was a lot of noise, and so it was like someone was standing, about 20 feet from me speaking. And I was able to repeat some of the words back about the hair
Yeah.
that I had heard.
Wow.
It's
So,
really weird.
the other day I was up at your guys' camp just hanging out for a little while. And I clearly heard Kelly call out my name.
Oh,
And you were, 30 feet from me sitting in your car? And I looked and, you're like not looking at me or paying attention. And I'm kind of looking around going, well, did somebody hear who just called me? And nobody else heard anything. But I very clearly heard you call my name and you had no clue.
was it a sexy voice?
Jeez, I screeched. And you said, yeah.
All righty then. Anybody else? No? All right. Well, I guess that wraps up our Friday morning meeting. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's all go out and have a great adventure today. Woohoo!